The views and opinions expressed by the guests of Sasquatch Experience do not necessarily reflect the opinion of the hosts, sponsors, or affiliates of the Sasquatch Experience. As always, listener discretion is advised.
And good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Sasquatch Experience. Sean Forker, Henry May, James Baker, Vance Nesbitt, and our guests tonight, Jami and Jenny King, two of my favorite people in the world of Bigfoot, joining us here. But before we jump in with Jami and Jenny, we had a great show last week, guys, with Cliff Barrickman. Cliff joined us, and the response has been really decent to that episode. Cliff, a great guy, and I was glad he was able to carve some time out to be with us to promote the North American Bigfoot Center, not just a museum, but a research center. And he wanted us to be very clear about that. And folks, you can go learn more about that at NorthAmericanBigfootCenter.com. But guys, here we are. The Summer of Sasquatch continues, season 3 of the Sasquatch Experience, and it is great to be here tonight.
Happy Flag Day.
Happy Flag Day.
That's right. It is Flag Day.
We don't have a flag. Sorry.
I don't either. So way to shame us.
I got to show off my shirt. The Michigan Wonderland. All right.
Well, we have James Baker back in the house with us this week. James, welcome back.
Good to be here.
And, well, guys, let's just get right started. Jami, Jenny, thanks for coming on the show. It's so good to see you, and I'm so glad you're here with us.
Thank you for having us. Yeah.
Again, two of my favorite people in the world of Bigfootery, because you guys just, well, you get along with everybody, and you do your own thing, and you have your own beliefs. And Jami, late congrats on being the community elected researcher of the year, my friend.
Yes.
That was a lot of fun.
Hey.
Hey, you know, it's well deserved. You're a good dude. So, guys, one question I'm going to ask, just so listeners who may not be familiar with your story, how did you guys get the Bigfoot bug? How did you get started into the world of Bigfootery?
Whoa. Okay. We had a Bigfoot encounter in Pennsylvania that kind of changed everything for us, and that's how we really got started. But I mean, Jenny and I were ghost hunters, so we were ghost hunters at Mansfield Reformatory and Haunted Hillview Manor. So we were kind of already into the unknown, but to have a Bigfoot experience was definitely groundbreaking for us.
How long have you hunted ghosts before you were in the Bigfoot?
Since 2004.
Okay, so you guys have been researching these topics for a long time. It's not like you just picked up one day and said, hey, I'm going to investigate the paranormal. You jumped in and you had done some background work in the paranormal field before you got in the Bigfoot.
Yes.
Right.
Now, do you think any of those things you learned while you were doing paranormal investigations have helped you or helped frame some of your thoughts into what Bigfoot is?
I do think so, because when you're out there doing some ghost hunting in the paranormal world, you use your deductive reasoning. You don't just count everything as being, okay, well, that was really the window. It wasn't like somebody saying something. You know what I mean? So you kind of use your deductive reasoning, and that, I think, helps us too with our Bigfoot research.
And I think, like, Jenny and I had this conversation actually a couple days ago, how we started viewing ghost hunting is not so much ghost as it is energy. So, like, you think about, like, I mean, I listened to the podcast with Cliff, and he's, like, science-based, and, like, we're not scientists, but we're novice people doing research into the unknown. And, like to me, ghost hunting is really energy. So you're connecting with some form of energy.
Mm-hmm.
And that can be scientifically evaluated, documented.
Right.
It's a child. It's okay. It's a child. We get it.
I really thought that was Baker for some reason. I'm sorry. I was like, he just had that mischievous look on his face.
I was confused.
But no, you're right. And so you're still taking the observational effect, right? You're looking at observations, making deductions, testing them out. And when you had your experience in Pennsylvania, I think I don't know if you want to give your research area out. I don't know if that's quite safe always to tell people where you spend the majority of your time, but you do a lot of research in the Penn, Ohio border area.
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's basically a micro study. So like after our encounter, Jenny and I both started thinking like, we spent so much time in these haunted buildings that we knew those buildings so well. And then we thought after our Bigfoot encounter, we're going to micro study. So we know the woods where we live, where we research, and we know every nook and cranny, and we know when something's changed or when it's just familiarize yourself with it and you become part of it.
That's brilliant. And James, you and I, when we first got into this, we had our own micro study area. We had two areas where James and I spent a lot of time. One we got chased out of by white vans, and the other was a state game land. But we had become very familiar with those areas. And like you said, it prepares you, to know the area, know what animals frequent that area, know what noises are typical in that area. So it really does help you. As Jenny said, your deductive reasoning really helps you eliminate some of the potentialities that are out there.
Plus, if you have an area you're used to, if something does happen, to go right or left or go back to where the car is. It's second nature instead of trying to figure out where you're at the moment when things. Because a lot of times when these kind of things happen, you're just kind of stunned for a few minutes. But if you've been there a few times, it's like, oh yeah, there's where the door is. Let's move.
Right.
And you kind of want a comfort level too. You want to feel like like where you're at. You want to know that you're safe.
No, makes perfect sense.
Pretty well. Sorry.
So let me ask a question. I'll ask a question real quick. For our listeners that may not be familiar, just with just a brief description of what your encounter was.
I guess you could say that we've had 3 encounters. 2 of the encounters were in the same location. And, like I say encounter because we don't know exactly what we experienced. It's hard to say Bigfoot, but we do say Bigfoot because that's the closest thing that we can relate it to. Basically, we were in Pennsylvania in a location not very far from where we live. There's different layers to our story, but we hiked down this turkey trail in Pennsylvania, and we had our beagle with us. And I remember our beagle acting funny, and Jenny and I both observed her behavior. We picked her up, and as soon as we picked her up, we heard a vocalization, and it was this long, drawn-out vocalization. And we both kind of just stood there looking at one another. We couldn't really respond to one another. We were just making eye contact, and we watched these trees in front of us shaking, and it was a sound that was really like you could feel it in your body. You could feel it in the ground below you, and for both of us, we both didn't know exactly what we were experiencing. We hiked as we were hiking out. You could hear this thing on both sides of us, so it was like all encompassing. So it was this feeling that. Yeah.
So we were running, but not running because we didn't want to trip and fall on the way out.
And we had our beagle with us the whole time. We made it back to our truck, and I remember, we didn't really say anything the whole way home. When we got home, we just started listening to animal vocalizations, and nothing showed up. And then for whatever reason, we put in Bigfoot, and this recording came up called the Ohio Howl. So I started looking at this Ohio Howl, and I realized it was recorded in Wellsville, Ohio, which is like 40 miles from where we live. But it was spot on to what we heard. Only what we heard was way louder.
Yeah.
And we've heard that vocalization since that time.
Right. And I think probably, the big impact of that is when you're in person and you have that experience, there is not going to be any audio recording that is going to envelop that power and intensity in what you experienced in real time, actually in the field. So,
Right.
yeah, you can kind of match the sounds, but I can imagine, not that I've had the experience myself, but I can certainly imagine listening to animal vocalizations. And I'm like, yeah, that's definitely a wolf. But until you hear a wolf howling right in front of you, it's an entirely different chapter altogether.
Right. It's I mean, I've never actually heard a wolf in the wild, and I've never actually heard.
That would be awesome.
I never thought I would hear a Bigfoot in the wild, but
Of course, right?
I can't say that it was Bigfoot, but I'm saying what we heard was definitely prehistoric sounding. And after that encounter, we took our friend to the same location. He's a Fish and Game and Wildlife, to show him where this had happened. And on our way out, we started hiking out. We came to this one area where we heard what sounded like a man talking, a whistle, and a dog bark. So Jenny got both of our dogs. We had both dogs at the time on the leash, and Roger and I walked over to the edge of this ravine, and we watched this thing stand straight up, but it went in the opposite direction of us downhill. So really what we were watching was something that I really can't describe other than it was on 2 feet and it went straight away from us super fast. And I remember that we both went down into the location, which was really difficult to get to because of the underbrush and the thorny raspberry bushes and things.
Yeah, lots of jaguars, yeah.
But, Sean, I think after our encounter, we drove all the way out to Du Bois because we wanted to share this experience with somebody that had more experience than we do. And, that's when we first met you.
Yeah, that was at the Keystone Bigfoot Project presentation out in Clearfield. I think we asked you to go out with us that night, didn't we? Or at least I asked you to go out with us.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared because I had, I was all girly and had sandals on, and
I was super stoked. I'm like, yeah, I'll go out with you guys.
Yeah, no, it was great.
Yeah, I wasn't prepared. I didn't know. If I would have known, then I would have dressed for the occasion. But yeah.
No, but I remember you guys bringing your stories and your encounters and telling me, and I'm just so glad you became researchers because you guys have a very good rapport you build with people. You make them feel comfortable, and that's incredibly important today. I think more so now than ever because you can make some snap judgment that could really damage people and really put them in a bad place. We often talk about the psychological ramifications of Bigfoot sightings. And, I think maybe many researchers might approach, everybody, is telling a story. But I think when you experience something, you can put yourself in the position of the person who's experienced it as well. And you have a little bit more empathy.
Yes.
And that kind of tears down some walls.
Oh yeah.
And you guys do that. You make so many people comfortable. I can't tell you how many people tell me time and time again that you guys are their favorite researchers, incredible people, and you made me proud. I'll say that you've made me proud.
Stop it!
I just love the way how you just took a look at Jami, going, "Oh my God, really?"
Now, you know what? I always tell people if it's not fun, don't do it. We like to just have fun with it. We're not scientists. We're out in the woods as much as we can be. And the people that you meet along the way in this Bigfoot community, they're all characters and they all serve a purpose.
Yeah, it's so true. They are characters.
I seriously, I really never really met anyone that I didn't like. I find joy in all the people that I've met.
Wow, kudos to that.
That's a very pragmatic approach, my friend. I appreciate that. I wish I could say the same, but that's why
Yeah,
we
you're
keep you
doing way
around.
better than I am.
Yeah, well, you and I are two
I
old
love
cranks.
You guys. I love you guys.
Yeah.
So you had your exciting experience, and you started research. What kept you going with it? I know you've made some friends. We have our mutual friend Jim Sparky. What keeps you going with it? I mean, you've been doing this now for some time. Why stick around?
Why stick around, Jenny? Why would you
Well,
want to hang out in the woods?
Well, I love being in the woods anyway, but
Yeah.
but besides that, I think because our first experience was so personal, in relation to Jamie's dad, it was very personal. So I think just after we had that initial experience, we just wanted to know more, and it just was very intriguing. And we're like, well, let's just keep going out and see what happens. And so we kept going out, and at the Shenango where we always go, and that's how we got to research and know the area so well. And it just becomes really personal, and it becomes like close to your heart. I don't know how that sounds,
I mean,
but
but
yeah.
Jenny kind of touched on it. I mean, I didn't tell you the entire story, but there's an element of this story, like our encounter, that goes beyond just a Bigfoot thing. To me, like, my father had passed away, and I said a prayer the day that we went for a hike. On this hike, not expecting any kind of sign from my dad. I really believe I received a sign from my dad, but the last movie that I watched with my dad was Harry and the Hendersons. So, like, that hit me days later about the power of thought and the power of prayer. And, like, the whole quantum element is maybe we are all energy. And how do we know?
We are.
Like, Jenny and I watch a lot of Gaia TV. Gaia TV is really super interesting, but they deal a lot with quantum physics and how our thoughts and our energy, and they connect with things,
Yeah.
that are beyond our
Right.
senses.
Right.
So that's exciting. That kind of stuff is exciting to me, and that might go against a lot of people in the Bigfoot world, as a woo part of this experience. But Jenny and I both are open to all aspects of it.
That's
Like,
right.
if somebody told me that they saw a Bigfoot and a UFO, I'm not going to judge them. I'm going to ask them more questions.
Exactly.
Right, and I'm kind of on that same page too. I'm not on the woo and the mind speak and all of that, and I know Sean and I have had these conversations. At least for myself, and I'll only speak for myself. I'm starting looking at the flesh and blood aspect, and
Yeah,
it doesn't mean that something more could be tangible. And I'm not going to get on a soapbox right now, but I made the comment prior to this that all your witnesses that have had, alien encounters, whatever kind of alien you're speaking of, it has a head, shoulders, 2 arms, 2 legs, and feet, 2 eyes, nose, and a mouth. All of them do. And if that is the case, then that would be the perfect design for a bipedal creature, etc. So maybe there is something, but I'm not going to categorize that as a Bigfoot. I'm looking at it as a flesh and blood creature only, but you can't put it out of question if somebody had a bizarre encounter, and there's plenty of them out there. So I agree with you.
Have you ever thought of this, though, that maybe it's spiritual and physical, both?
It's possible, and I have thought of that. Yes, I have thought of that. But I have to have a starting point. And my starting point is, let's just take a look at flesh and blood and eliminate everything else. If it's not, we'll just work away and start eliminating.
Let's be fair, though. You're talking about Bigfoot, and you're talking about Pennsylvania, which you go back has a synchronicity between the weird and the real. So, I know where I reside in the realm of comfort, and I think that's the way I put it. The evidence doesn't sway it to anything but flesh and blood to me, but that doesn't mean I'm right. And that also doesn't mean that I'm not going to entertain aspects. Just because I don't understand it doesn't mean it's not the way it is. So there is a little bit of element to it that, personally, I'm okay with people explaining and trying to show me, maybe what I have closed off. And what I appreciate about Jami and Jenny, however, is that they just don't write it off. And you guys, aren't afraid to try new things either when it comes to this research. And, it's easy for me to be locked-minded because I've been doing this for so long. But it doesn't mean I don't appreciate people with a different mindset than what I have, especially people like you guys that are out doing it. And I know, Jami, we had someone on the other week with us I should know this because they were my guest. And you were in the chat, and we were talking about it was Todd Neese.
Todd Neese, right?
You know, he had talked about the prayer, and he witnessed this like Native American prayer and the gifting, and had some results from it. And you think there's merit behind that, correct?
I truly think that there's merit behind all of the unknown. You know, like Renee on Finding Bigfoot says that, you know, when people have Bigfoot on the brain, I think she meant it in a negative connotation, like everything is Bigfoot. But I took it more as like, you know, there's a connection between researchers. When you're actively seeking the unknown, you get responses, you know, and experiment with it. Like Jenny and I are not afraid to experiment. You know, in the Allegheny National Forest, we were with a group of people that are very BFRO type researchers, and we pulled out a recorder and started recording on a paranormal level, and we got responses back. And, you know, to me, that kind of stuff is very exciting because you can really document. You can really document.
Uh-oh.
With patterns.
Jamie's getting excited here. He's
Yeah, I the unknown because, you know, I don't know that anybody's going to get the answers. I don't think they are, but, you know, we're only here on this planet a short time. So just have fun and experiment with everything.
No, and you know what, Jamie, that philosophy that you just put out there is actually the same philosophy done in so many other fields that aren't even close to the cryptid research, like medical research. You know, you keep digging in order to find a discovery, and you're doing exactly the same thing.
You say that, Vance, but look how much money has been spent on studying the power of prayer. And, you know, that, you know, we're so willing, and this is where I kind of get torn up in what Jami and Jenny are talking about and the world we live in, that we will spend so much money studying prayer and its, you know, and its healing properties. But in that effect, aren't we just talking about the transference of energy and thought at that point, right? Like you spend millions of dollars studying the power of prayer and blind test, and you know, but if you would say that to a Christian would say, well, hell, they wouldn't say, well, hell, they would say, well, we always
you never know.
Oh, hell yeah.
We always knew it worked, right?
Yeah,
so
right.
Again, you know, you get into this beliefs, but then I start thinking about thought forms, and they start talking about this and other levels of cryptozoology, zoo forms, thought forms, you know, and you were talking about it just moments ago, Jami, where you're talking about, you know, Bigfoot on the brain. But, you know, when you put that much energy and transference, when you were thinking about your dad and going out into the woods, you know, do we really manifest some of these things? And that's it's a thought to have, right? It is there's nothing wrong with asking that question in the context of the field in which we study.
You know, the strange thing is the Bigfoot encounter was big, but when I realized, when I was driving in my car and I realized that the last movie that I watched with my dad was Harry and the Hendersons, that took on a bigger role in all of this. And I thought to myself, the unknown is something that we can try to know. You know, and it was really profound for me. Like it was more of an awakening than any church that I'd ever gone to. You know, like I grew up in this hippie culture where my sisters took me to these revivals, and it was like Woodstock where praise Jesus and smoke pot. But it was, you know, like to me, I learned more from my personal experiences than I did from a church.
Oh, and I encourage more people to get out and experience things in a safe way, right? Because, you know, there is safety applications to consider while being out doing this. James, what do you think about that? The whole manifestations of energy and thought forms. I know you have to have a thought.
Well, I mean, you got to take it from the perspective of is that it could be both. It could be a flesh and blood animal, but it also could be something that's semi-spiritual. I mean, the Native Americans believed the closer they were to the earth, the more they saw the things that we don't see every day. I mean, the fact is that, you know, we have people that say, oh, it's here all the time, but when I try to take a photograph or I put up a game cam, it knows better. Well, how do you know on a spiritual level that's, you know, now minus the people who see stuff that doesn't exist, but I mean, the fact is like there has to be like a percentage that it could be something that's attuned to nature that says, wait a minute, there's a camera here, so I'm going to go away because I know that's not supposed to be in my living room.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to be like completely flesh and blood, and it doesn't have to be completely like spiritual. It may be something a middle ground because I always say this, and it's very confusing, is that how has something lived for thousands of years and still nothing has really
Mm-hmm.
poked up as a real evidence? And we
Yeah.
could say whatever we want. We could say, "Oh yeah, I've got Nessie in my backyard, and I've got a hair from blah blah blah." But in the end of the day, no one can 100% with the science where Maury can figure out who's the baby daddy, and
Mm.
he this for the Bigfoot. Okay, so I feel that
Uh,
some kind of elemental reason why we're just not supposed to know.
mm-hmm.
You know,
And and folks, on that note, we do have to take a news break here as we move to
Oh.
the half-hour mark. Folks, patreon.com/Sasquatch Experience starts at $2 a month. You could support your favorite podcast and have more great guests like Jami and Jenny on the show. So go ahead, follow that link, and become a Patreon. And folks, we'll be right back right after this news break.
Let me head to the news desk. Sasquatch Experience, Stranger Than Fiction, News and Stories is brought to you by our patrons. Become a patron and become part of the experience. Go to patreon.com/Sasquatch Experience. Bigfoot sightings were possible along Interstate 70 in Colorado today, Monday, June 14th. Out of Bailey, Colorado, if you've always hoped to catch a glimpse of the legendary creature, well, you soon may have the chance. A crate marked "Caution, Captured Sasquatch" was on the move from Ohio to Colorado. Inside the crate is a 7-foot, 3 mechanical Sasquatch and a small juvenile, created by Unit 70 Studios in Columbus, Ohio. The pair are heading to the Sasquatch Outpost in Bailey and are expected to arrive today. John Warren and Sherry Peterson made the trip to Ohio and began the drive back to Colorado on Sunday. They said that their cargo has been sparking conversations at stops along the way. Bigfoot will make himself visible at the Sasquatch Museum, which is considered one of the top 10 wackiest places to visit in Colorado. Source: CBS 4. And a woman reports a Sasquatch encounter outside of a gym in Ashland, Colorado. A 20-year-old woman walked out of the warehouse 24-hour gym around midnight after her workout was complete. She turned to the right and headed to her car in a well-lit parking lot. There were no other vehicles in the lot on that side of the building, which was constructed back in 2018. But she was reportedly not alone on the clear spring night back on April 24th. The woman heard a twig snap. She looked and saw a creature 7 or 8 feet tall and covered in gray hair, racing back into the woods about 30 yards away. It was far too large, likely several hundred pounds, and moved too quickly to be a man, she believed. Shaken to tears, she called her parents from a nearby restaurant, asking them to come and get her and drive her home. She had likely encountered a Sasquatch, according to nationally acclaimed Bigfoot investigator Matt Moneymaker, who has devoted much of his life to the pursuit of the mysterious creature. Source: richlandsource.com. And a missing man was found dead inside a Spanish dinosaur statue. Police in Catalonia are investigating the death of a man who is thought to have become trapped inside a large dinosaur statue while trying to retrieve his mobile phone. Officers were called to the statue in a satellite town of Barcelona after a man and his son noticed something inside a Stegosaurus statue on a Saturday afternoon. A spokeswoman for the regional police said that the death of the 39-year-old man was not being treated as suspicious. We found the body of the man inside the leg of the dinosaur statue. It's an accidental death. There was no violence. This person got stuck inside the statue's leg and got trapped. It looks as though he was trying to retrieve a mobile phone, which he had dropped in the mouth of the dinosaur. It looks like he entered the statue head first and couldn't get out. Source: The Guardian. And NASA is blasting water bears and bobtail squid into space. When SpaceX made its 22nd resupply mission to the International Space Station, it was carrying two very special guest species, water bears and bobtail squid. The animals are being launched into the cosmos in the name of science as NASA researchers attempt to learn more about how the conditions of spaceflight can affect biological organisms and, by extension, future astronauts. Source: NPR. And real quick, everyone, here's an interesting fun fact. According to Tori Avey, coffee became a popular drink in America after the Boston Tea Party of 1773. Making the switch from tea to coffee was considered a patriotic duty. Thanks for listening to the Sasquatch Experience, Stranger Than Fiction, News and Stories. Now, I'll throw it back over to you guys.
Well, thanks, Vance. Here we are, folks. Welcome back, Sasquatch Experience. Well, you all know who we are, and we're back from that little break. Henry, what'd you think about that little news segment, huh?
I like it. Good stuff.
Thank you.
Henry, what do you got for Jami and Jenny tonight?
Well, I do know that there was a recent photo taken in the ocean of a surfer. And there's some kind of weird entity right beside the surfer. It's not a shark. It's not a whale. It's not any kind of a fish. It's not another surfer. It's shaped kind of like, well, for lack of a better word, a swastika. It's not a swastika, but it's kind of shaped like one. Very unusual looking entity, whatever it is.
I'd be interested in seeing that.
Yeah, I haven't seen it.
It's some sort of like mutated starfish,
I have no idea.
like an angry German starfish, maybe. I don't know.
Where was this? Do you know where it was?
No, I don't know where this was.
Because there's interesting things going on in the South Pole, Antarctica.
Uh-huh.
So I don't know.
Well, Henry, you're going to have to get more on that for us. In terms of the Bigfoot, you got any questions for him?
What has been your most, I guess, terrifying experience?
Well, I guess that was the first one. Right? Would you say it's the
I would
first
say that Hocking Hills was pretty terrifying when we were in Hocking Hills.
See, I wasn't as scared.
Well,
I wasn't.
Hocking Hills, we had an encounter. Like we were on this property where there was activity. We had hiked this power line and we found a partial print. So to us, it had toes and it looked like it had been washed out, but it was a power line where nobody would be walking barefoot. So, we had gone back to our cabin and I remember we were sitting around the campfire and the Sparky was with us at the time and two of our other friends. And I felt like, they were a little bit sort of making fun of the whole Bigfoot thing. And again, this is weird, but I said a prayer. I'm like, Bigfoot, don't make me look stupid. And we went back out on that power line at night. And as we're out there, there were like thousands of fireflies and it was like super spiritual and beautiful.
Cool.
So we're watching these fireflies and, I think I did a whoop and some knocks and then, we didn't hear anything. Then we hiked a little bit further and we were kind of like facing this swampy area and it's a tree farm. So the tree farm's off to our left near our cabin. And then there was the swampier area off to the right. And our friend did this like ape-like type sound. And at that point we had heard vocalization. And again, it seemed like we were in the middle of a conversation because there was another sound on the opposite side of us, sort of behind the tree farm. And the weirdest thing happened is like we recorded the whole night, so we have it on recording, like audio recording. But what we heard was what sounded like maybe coyotes and then something beyond it.
Ooh.
And all of a sudden we heard a tree. This tree was uprooted out of the ground and thrown at us, and
It was
all of us reacted. We were all just in shock that we heard this thing come out of the ground, and the tree was thrown at us. But what Jenny and I didn't expect was one of the girls that was with us had an air horn, and she released this air horn off and like totally freaked us out.
where everybody's like swearing and running, and then she sets off the air horn. That scared me more than.
Yeah, right?
But yeah.
Yeah, well, I'd be terrified too. Hmm.
That's what I'm talking about, like the fun in the Bigfoot world. You know, looking back, I wish we hadn't gone back to our cabin. Like basically we were running. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, everybody
We
was
were running.
Scooby doing it. Is what was happening.
That's cute. Well, it's terrifying, but it's cute at the same time. You
Well,
know,
Henry-
I would like to add. Okay, go ahead, because we're
No.
not done with Henry yet.
Well, I was just going to ask Henry if that satisfied his palate for terrifying Bigfoot stories.
Yes, it did.
Fair enough. Go ahead, Vince.
Henry, I think you would be absolutely fun out in the woods. I would love to go squatching with you. All of you, really.
Cool.
All right, we'll sign up on that book. Absolutely.
Well, you know, we can make
Yeah.
that happen, guys.
Mhm.
We're not that far from one another. Vance, it's a little bit of a drive, and Henry,
No, I'll hitchhike.
Well,
That's fine.
we're going to have to fly Henry up, but we can make it happen.
Hmm.
Sean, I
Yeah.
actually went to that location where you had your encounter.
The meadow area.
Yeah, I went with the Ruperts. Like that's where, you know.
Yeah.
I'm
Another
not
group of
saying it, but
My favorite people. Another
Yeah.
group. In fact, that little background you can't really see is an aerial shot of that area. I keep it close by because it was a rather, uncomfortable moment of my life.
Mm.
Did you feel anything?
Impactful, right?
Did you have anything happen to you when you guys were out there? Did you feel anything strange or weird out that way?
We found a bear track.
yeah, we found a
Well,
bear track.
yeah.
The other
They're
thing
not-
that I noticed about where you had your experience was it was kind of like it was very wooded, but where
Mhm.
you had your encounter was a meadow.
Yeah. We
That
were
was
right in the center of it.
in the center of it, yeah.
Hmm.
And I wasn't
Yeah.
really truly prepared for the rattlesnakes like that. That would
Oh, yeah.
They kept saying there's rattlesnakes, and we're in these ferns that are like at least 2 feet high, and we're like, oh my god, I
So
can't
the
see.
ferns are wrapping around our ankles and legs, and I'm like, this is not cool.
You know, I don't know what it is about the people from that area, okay? But rattlesnakes are like a tornado warning or a tornado alert. We were camping out at Parker Dam, and there was a rattlesnake crossing the road, all right? And like 3 or 4 different vehicles drove through our campsite, would stop, roll their windows down, and say, hey, I got a rattlesnake on the road up there. Like,
Yeah, we saw one.
We did that. We
We
did
that.
saw one. There
Yeah.
was one on the road. We're like, oh my gosh, there's one right there.
yeah, now I can't do snakes. Like, and I know they're there. Like, I'm not oblivious to that, folks. I know snakes exist, and I know they're in the woods, but they don't make me feel good about myself. I don't like them. They terrify me,
Oh,
and I
It's
think maybe
okay, Andy.
I think it's because I have a hard time identifying the ones that can kill you from the ones that can't.
right.
So I don't like any of them personally. Now, I'm
Yeah.
not going to go out and kill them because they do their part in keeping the world in balance and getting rid of other things I hate, like rodents.
Hmm.
But I don't do snakes, guys. I don't like them. Can't do
You
it.
know,
But
you
like-
might find this really unusual, guys, but the area I'm in, even in the Chicago area, there's rattlesnakes.
Yeah, I could believe
People
that.
don't put those equations together. Now they'll bite, they're venomous, but they're not as deadly as say our diamondback. But nonetheless, I didn't expect to run into rattlesnake here. But yeah, they do cover quite a bit of country. Hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. They
I was
just don't
gonna
make
say-
me feel good. Go ahead, Henry.
Jamie and Jenny, I have put the link to that story on both your Facebook pages.
All right,
Oh,
thank you.
Oh,
Uh-huh.
I see. But Baker myself, when I see, I get it. It's fine. It's good.
I
It's
don't open
fine.
any sketchy links from Henry. Okay, I learned it that first time.
Well, they'll pull it up and then they'll just hold it up to the camera there.
That's why
That's
they call it Bangkok.
Jamie and Jenny, I want to throw this out there before, end of show. Not that we're there yet, but I appreciate the fact, because I do get a personal joy out of the fact of how many photographs you post when you go out. It doesn't matter whether it's just wildlife or the research area and what you've discovered, but I truly, even if it's just one person, which is me, that gets satisfaction from it, thank you for doing that, because it puts me in that place also where you guys are out researching. It's well worth the effort for me, because I look at all of them. So, and there's a plethora of pictures there, that's for sure.
Yes, Jamie is an awesome photographer. He can capture
Yeah, he is.
any.
I also
don't know,
like.
anything. I
Sorry.
swear, he's good. He's good.
No, I think when I'm out, I think it's a frequency. I'm tuned into nature, and I just like it could be an insect. I get excited.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. I'm the same way. I mean, I take pictures of honeybees, for crying out loud, and I get a big kick out of it, and everybody else is like, yeah, so it's a bee. Big deal. I'm like, oh, it's a big deal to me. But I appreciated the fact that you shoved Jenny into the bush there with the flowers around her, and I'm like, oh, that's a cute picture.
She's pretty. I'm gonna take a picture of my wife.
Just knock her down.
Right.
Where did that come from? Oh, it was James. That's who said it.
That was a Baker moment.
Yeah. It was.
But no, once again, thanks for putting up those pictures. They're very, very educational, and they're fun to look at. Absolutely.
I'm not going to touch that one. But Brian Seach says Jamie and Jenny are awesome. Our good friend Brian Seach listening.
Hey, Brian.
Hey, Brian.
Brian.
Hey, Brian.
God, I'm just going to say it for a moment. There's some people in Pennsylvania, guys, that we're fortunate to be able to work with and connect with and get to know. Brian and Terry, Dave and Carrie. By the way, Carrie Rupert, who has an infectious smile. I just love these people. Great people to work with. And, of course, Jamie and Jenny, our friends, the Fargiorgios. We could go on and on and on and talk all day about our friends in Pennsylvania, but this is about Jamie and Jenny. And Jenny, question I have for you is...
Hello, Pooch.
I bet. Oh, I was like, well, that's rude. I was talking.
He just jumped down.
Oh,
Okay.
okay. We had a cameo there.
Yes, we
Who
did.
was that? Who was that? I didn't get
That's
to see
Bill
the
Murray.
dog. It's Bill
That's
Murray.
Bill.
Why did I,
Bill
why did
Murray, I love it.
Why am I not surprised that it was Bill Murray? He has to get in there somewhere, right? Jenny, as we move further away from, being kids and we get into the world where our minds more exposed and corrupted, do you think we lose that connection that makes the potentiality to sight or see Bigfoot or other paranormal events or phenomena? Do you think that it's something that we always have, but as we grow older, we lose?
It probably depends on the person. I'm sure it's different for everyone, but I think that it is possible to lose that, because when we're kids, we're always using our imagination, and our imagination just runs wild with all these things. But I think when you use your imagination, you're also in touch with things a little bit more. And I think as you get older, you kind of become a little bit more conditioned in a way, and you kind of lose that insight, maybe. But I try to keep it alive inside myself, Yeah,
and I asked that question because you guys really do have that embodiment of imagination and fun. And I think, perhaps, there are people out there, guys, that we could all say that you run into that go out, and every time they go out in the woods, they have some sort of experience. They have some sort of encounter. And, often they're ridiculed, but sometimes you got to wonder, maybe they're just maybe they're not lucky. Maybe they just got it. Maybe they just understand what they got to do to get these things happening.
You know, like
Mhm.
I watched the show with Cliff, and Cliff was talking about the structures, the TP structures or structures in general. I honestly, I think there's a connection with something that I don't really see people building them here. I've never seen a person building them here, but I'm finding them in and around the location where we had our encounter. And there's a woman in Canada that I love to follow in the Bigfoot world. Her name's Leanne Carnegie. She finds these things all the time. And you think about the Olympic project and the nest that they found out there. It's a ground nest. But what's to say that something on the West Coast is a little bit different than the East Coast?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Well, you say that, but I think it was Jody Cook that had that photograph of the giant kind of like nest mound. Henry, you know what I'm talking about, out in
Yeah.
Ohio.
Right.
So
Mhm.
you might not be wrong in that thought. What I thought was interesting from the episode we had with Cliff, Jami, was the sighting where they described the creature carrying the log
Yeah.
over its shoulder.
Right.
Like in Pennsylvania, we've got a ton of stories of deer being seen, flown over the shoulder of a Bigfoot. But I've not heard of one where it's carrying a deer. And, over the years, I've heard many researchers talk about what the purpose of these tree structures are, whether it's shelter, if there's nests, navigational beacons, warning signs. I think to Cliff's point that until we see one make it,
Right. I agree
we
with
have
that.
to be skeptical.
Mhm.
But, sometimes you have to wonder, Jami, what's the purpose? Why are they there? And have you run into any of these out in Shenego or anywhere? Have you run into any that you could definitively say, well, a Boy Scout didn't make that?
No, I can't say, but
Right.
I've talked to the Boy Scouts and asked the Boy Scout leaders, have you made these structures? Have you seen these structures? And they've told me no. And I communicate a lot with
No, Bill.
the Fish and
That's
Game and
fine.
Wildlife and the Game Commissioner. They know what I do out there.
Yeah.
They've seen some things that they can't explain, and I showed them the teepee structures, and they were kind of intrigued by it.
Mm-hmm. And I had a thought too, not to interject, but when Cliff was talking about carrying a log, and I've also heard in the past too that they may be digging for grubs. Who's to say that's not a smorgasbord or KFC bucket that he's bringing back to the family or for the juveniles to go pick and eat the whatever might be living in the log?
Right.
That it has me intrigued, but that's really the only kind of thing I could come up with.
Right.
As
I
a
completely
kind of a
agree
logical
with
answer.
Cliff. I agree. If you have to see them build it, but to me, every little piece of everything that we find within the area that we research, I keep notes. So I document everything that happens. I document the way I research, like whether I say a prayer before I go out, or whether I do a meditation or something when I'm out, and if activity happens. But a lot of times it's there's connections with the way you think.
Mm-hmm. Right. Okay, so I got another question for you. For either or, doesn't matter. In your day-to-day life at work, how do your coworkers, do you talk to them at all about any of this, and how do they respond to it?
Good. Jim.
I would have to say with what I do, I guess I don't talk about it. Not that I don't want to talk about it. Maybe I'm just so focused on my job that I'm
Right.
I'm not thinking about, I gotta tell my individuals about this, because I work for an agency. Where I work with handicapped and mentally handicapped individuals. So I don't know. Not that I wouldn't talk to them about it, because that's not it at all. But I don't know. I guess I just don't.
I think for me, I've talked about it at work. Most people respect the fact that I talk about it, and nobody really makes fun of the fact
That's
that
good.
that's what I do. And
Right.
our our experience is our experience, and
Mm-hmm.
most people are positive about it.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry,
No, I think Bill is disagreeing with you, but that's okay.
like Jenny's father, he's one that he really doesn't want to hear any of it.
Mm-hmm.
My
Yeah, I
parents
find
both
that
passed
interesting.
away, but they would probably want me to talk about my life, And
Right.
honestly, like, people may not know this about Jenny and I, but we're both actually kind of shy people. But when you get us talking about passionate things, then we do.
There he goes again.
Trust me, Jenny, don't freak out. This is part of it. This is all part of it. So yeah, just let Bill speak his mind. It's okay.
I'm also a beagle owner.
What's it
That's a
called,
familiar hell.
Yeah, right.
I love beagles.
Yeah, they're awesome. High strung.
Jamie,
No, I know. Yeah, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Vince. I was just
No,
going to
I was just gonna, throw my own personal into that too. That with the people that I work with, and I've talked to them about it. They know about this show. They know about my interests in all of this, and I've been very fortunate. For everybody that I've shared with, they kind of raise an eyebrow, going, "Wow, that's really interesting." I'm wow. Where can I find out more? Or some of them are like, "Wow, I've never told anybody, but I found these weird footprints, when I was a kid." I'm like, "Oh, well, here you go. This is a story." But I've never really been kind of shut down or shunned because of bringing the subject up. So I'm glad to hear that you kind of experience the same thing. And I think now that it's more in the mainstream with the whole Sasquatch, Bigfoot, whatever you want to refer to it as, it's a little bit more in the mainstream now. So it may be a little bit easier to listen to without being mocked. Go ahead, Sean. I'm sorry.
No, Bake, did you want to say something? You looked like you wanted to jump in there.
No, I was happy that there was a dog.
Oh, okay.
Besides that, but
There's a dog.
like the thing is like most people who know me are like, okay, that's just another aspect of Baker. But like the thing is like most people want to know, like little things like why and like Sean's big
Baker's happy
thing
there's a
is
dog.
Bigfoot per se, but mine is honestly like I like to learn about a variety of cryptids. Like I actually like the Mothman Festival over the Ohio Bigfoot Conference just because it's a different crowd and it's a little bit of difference. I like to listen to Lauren Coleman when he tells me about Nessie, even though he's like, it could be eels, but I think it might be this. But like, I think that most people somewhere want to believe in something.
Right.
And like my aunt, who's highly religious, she's like, oh, you believe in Bigfoot? We have the Rougarou down here and things like I never thought those words would come out of her mouth, but she was like, yeah, we believe in the supernatural. I mean, it's hard to say that Jesus exists with the proof you have and not something else
That's a
exists
good
with the
point.
proof you have.
Right. No, that's a good point. Right.
Like she's like you can't just say, well, if you can't have a body, then it doesn't exist. And I'm like, but Jesus, and she's like, yeah, shut up. It's like all these people that do, like you said about ghost hunting and like people that are demons and stuff like that. She goes, I can believe that because if you believe in the light, you have to believe in the dark, and and there could be mysterious things in between that we believe in enough that we either make them real or they believe in them enough that they're, that they are real.
True.
Fair enough.
So, Jamie and Jenny, do you guys still kind of reflect back or just say, you know what, for this weekend, let's do some ghost hunting or let's do something else paranormal related, step away from the Bigfoot? Do you do that occasionally?
Well, we haven't actually ghost hunted in a little while.
What we do, I mean, thinking about the power of thought and, like all of that stuff, Jenny and I started doing CSETI. If do you know what CSETI is?
I've heard of it. I'm not all that familiar, but I have heard of it.
Okay, so it's like CE5 contact. So there's a whole protocol on how to contact ETs. So like if you're gonna research Bigfoot, why not research this other stuff? And we've gone to this meadow in Shenango, out here near us, and we've played these tones that are known UFO recordings, put them on a walkie-talkie, blast them out as a frequency, and we've had things appear in the sky, and we've had things happen. We've had the weirdest thing ever, and I don't even know how to describe this to people, but we had these tones playing in our house after we did a meditation. We were both in bed, and we would hear this musical tones, almost like Close Encounters of the Third Kind.
Wow.
To me, it's about connecting with the unknown. So
right.
if you want to connect, then you have to think of yourself as a tuner and a receiver. So I'm tuning out this. I'm putting it out there to the universe, and whatever comes back, it comes back. And that's the excitement for me.
Wow.
And Jenny,
Yes.
like for real, we both are sometimes in awe at the things that happen, and we look at each other like, like people can be rich in life, but we're rich with experiences and really cool things that happen.
That's awesome.
Do you ever get worried when you're out there exploring and trying to connect that what you connect with may not be so altruistic?
I don't know. I guess if you put your intentions out there that you want to connect with something that you're going to resonate with, that is not going to take advantage of you in any way, I think that's a good intention to put out there. But no,
I think James and I are screwed.
What's that?
I said, I think James and I are screwed. If we try that, someone's getting probed. I'm telling you what.
Well, retail can do that to you.
For $2 a month, you can connect with all.
Okay. Good Lord. Well, there goes our patrons. Oh, they're dropping off like flies right now.
I'm just throwing the banner up there to begin with. Guys, we're reaching the end of the program. Jami, Jenny, any final thoughts you have for the listeners out there? And guys,
don't be afraid to experiment. Just be yourself, experiment with the universe, see what happens, research Bigfoot on a physical level, but also, take the ideas that you hear. Don't think that people are making up stories always, just listen to them, be a good listener. And I think it'll take you further in learning.
Hear, hear.
Yeah,
where can folks, go ahead, Jami.
I
Jenny.
was just going to say, be yourself, that's all you got to do.
Mhm.
And go out, get in the woods more.
I be myself in the woods. I scare everything away. So
Where can folks connect with you and learn more about you guys?
I mean, we both have Facebook, Jami, Jenny King. I'm like on PSR administrator. I have the Penn, Ohio Bigfoot Research on Facebook. Connect with us. Just find us on Facebook. I'm open to always being responsive to people, and I like people.
yeah, we like you guys.
They're people.
Yes.
We like you guys.
All right, we'll make plans and we'll hit the trail somewhere. We'll all make a meetup and we'll spend a weekend or a week or 6 months or who knows. Maybe we'll all just move in a commune together. Who knows?
Yeah.
Right?
You got to forgive those awkward pauses there. There is a little delay, guys. I'm sorry that I'm having a delay on my end a little bit. But I did hear Vance wants to start a commune. I don't know if I'm up for that. I'll visit occasionally. But you have more fun as a follower, but you make more money as a leader, James.
Yeah, right.
Creed
I
Bratton.
want to say happy birthday to our friend Kevin Morrison.
Happy
Yeah,
Yeah,
Kevin.
birthday, yeah.
Kevin.
Woo.
I should have had a graphic for that because I did wish him a happy birthday as soon as I got up this morning. So happy birthday, Kevin. Look forward to connecting with you soon, my friend. You too. I don't know. Language is hurting me tonight. Guys, thanks for joining us and coming on. We really appreciate it and are glad to have you. And come back again and visit with us here on the show.
Yeah, thank you
Yeah,
guys.
thank
Thank you
you.
all.
Absolutely.
Henry,
Yeah.
James, any final thoughts from you twos?
Just try and be more open-minded and don't be a dick.
I like it.
Oh, that's Al, let me do another disclaimer. Hang on.
I thought that was Baker. How do you follow that up?
I don't know. Lack of being a cock is pretty much a good answer. Hey, I ain't
Okay.
got nothing. I got.
All right.
Go Henry. All right.
Vance,
Yes.
go ahead, buddy.
Do I have any final thoughts? I need to go get a fan and cool off after what I just heard. Oh,
Yeah.
I'm sweating profusely. Thank you two so much for joining us tonight. It was our pleasure, totally
Yeah,
our
thank
pleasure.
you.
So thank you so
Absolutely.
much.
Yes, thank you.
It was
Henry?
our pleasure as well.
Yeah, no, let Sean do it.
Yeah, folks, to find out more about us, go to our website, SasquatchExperience.com, Sasquatch Experience on Facebook and Instagram, and Squatch EXP on Twitter. Report your sighting to us by going to our website, SasquatchExperience.com, once again. And please do your part and subscribe to our Patreon for as little as $2 a month. We can bring you a lot more. And you get a lot more when you become a subscriber. Thanks for listening, folks. James is dancing, showing things he shouldn't be showing.
Yeah.
Henry,
I love watching it just to watch what you're doing.
Henry, go ahead and close this out, buddy.
Y'all be good at it.
Keep on squatching, everybody. See you next week.
Bye.